One more Upanishad story. Indra and the gardener. In the sacred city of Benares, there was a beautiful garden full of flower plants and fruit trees of many kinds. One day, a cow entered the garden and did a great deal of damage to the plants. The gardener, on finding this state of affairs, came out with a bamboo and belabored the cow so much that it fell down and died. He then became greatly concerned with the consequences of his act, and wanting to get rid of the sin of cow killing, reasoned that the sin had been committed by his hands, and that the presiding deity of hands, namely the king of gods, Indra, was responsible for the sinful act and not he. It is said that the sin learned all about the line of reasoning of the gardener, and approaching Indra, told him of the manner in which the gardener wanted to shirk his responsibility. Thereupon, Indra disguised himself as a human being, and going to the garden in question, he met the gardener and began to praise the beauty of the flowers, the trees, and the layout of the garden. The gardener, thus flattered, started showing Indra the different beauty spots in the garden. Whereupon Indra said, "This garden defeats even the garden of Indra. Who has made it?" The gardener said, "I alone have made this garden with my own labor." Indra asked, "Do you mean that you have worked with your own hands?" And the proud gardener said, "With these hands of mine." Indra then appeared in his original form and said to the gardener, "How is it that if you made the garden with your own hands, you did not kill the cow with the same hands?" The gardener was nonplussed, and it is said that the sin of cow killing, who was nearby, at once fell on the shoulders of the gardener. Another Upanishad story. The worth of the Lord's name. Ajamil had a wife with whom he lived a very unhappy life. He left her, and he next started living with another woman whom he had not married. He had 8 sons by this woman, the youngest of whom he named Narayana. He loved this boy very much. Therefore, he uttered the word Narayana many times during the day. When he was dying, he kept on repeating the name of Narayana. This had its effect on his mind, and he was relieved from the effects of all the sins he had committed. Another story from Upanishad. The spirit of receiving a gift. A social worker who was organizing the celebration of an anniversary of a national leader's death got together a batch of voluntary workers for the collection of funds. One of these workers went to a wealthy man and asked for a donation. He knew that the wealthy man was a miser and would not easily part with any money. As the worker tried to persuade him to give something, however little, the rich man lost his temper and threw a broomstick at him. The worker took up the broomstick as if it was something of great value and thanked the rich man for his gift, which with evident delight and satisfaction. The rich man felt abashed and he apologized for his conduct and asked the worker why he regarded the broomstick which he had thrown at him in anger as some sort of gift. The volunteer said, "Sir, you have given me a great thing for a broomstick. Though unclean, cleans away all the dirt from the place where it is used. It has reminded me that I shall have to do such work myself in the organization to which I belong, and hence I am overjoyed that you have presented me with such a good thing." One more story from Upanishad. Power of concentration. One day, a disciple found Swami Vivekananda turning over the pages of a volume so fast that he thought that Swami must be looking merely at the pictures. He asked the Swami whether he was looking at the pictures in the book. Swami Vivekananda replied, "No, I am reading." The disciple said, "That requires attention, but you have been turning over the pages at the rate of a page per minute." The Swami then said, "No, I have been reading each page and I have finished 11 volumes on the shelf. You don't believe me? You can ask me questions concerning any subject matter dealt with in the 11 volumes." The disciple then started putting questions and Swami Vivekananda answered all the questions correctly. The disciple asked how it was possible for the Swami to read the big volume so quickly. Swami Vivekananda replied, "It is possible for a yogi who has observed the vow of continence scrupulously. When a boy is reading, his attention is first fixed on the letters composing a word, and he then learns how to pronounce a word. With more practice, a man does not look at each separate letter or the word itself, and by such practice, a reader can read a few words together at the same time. Similarly, it is possible to take in a whole sentence at a time. But if a man who has absolute self-control and continence concentrates his mind on the page, he can read a whole paragraph at one time. And later he will be capable of reading a whole page in this manner. When the power of concentration increases as a result of strict observance of the vow of continence." Another story from Kenopanishad. The source of power. In ancient times, there was a long and bitter fight between the gods, Devas, and the demons, Asuras. Ultimately, the gods came off victorious. But thereafter, they began to indulge in pride and became proud of their own prowess and possession of power. It is said that the Almighty, feeling that the god's pride must be curbed, incarnated himself as a yaksha or a super mundane being who inhabits the upper regions, and as such yaksha appeared before the gods. Puzzled by his appearance and not knowing who he was, they deputed the god of fire, Agni, to find out who he was. Agni proudly walked towards the Yaksha, and the latter asked him, "Who art thou?" Agni replied, "I am known as Agni, and some people also call me Jadavedas." "What is thy power?" asked the Yaksha, and he replied, "I can burn anything in the world into ashes, and none can escape me." The Yaksha then placed a piece of dry straw before Agni and asked him to burn it. Agni, however, tried with all his power to burn that wisp of straw, but was unsuccessful. He was surprised at the failure of his powers and came back to the gods greatly crestfallen. The gods thereupon sent Vayu, the god of wind, to meet the strange being. When Vayu met him, the latter asked again who he was and what he could do. Vayu replied, "I am the wind, and I am also known as Matarishwan. I can blow away anything that comes in my way." The Yaksha then placed the same wisp of straw and asked him to blow it away. Vayu tried with all his strength but could not move it from its place. This confused and puzzled him, and he also returned to the gods amazed at the loss of his powers. Thereafter, the gods persuaded Indra to go and meet the Yaksha. As Indra approached the Yaksha, the latter vanished into thin air. Indra stood confused when he saw the goddess Uma, Shiva's consort, appear before him in her resplendent beauty. Indra asked her reverentially, "Where is that wonderful being who was here a moment ago?" Uma said, "That was the form of the Almighty had taken. All of us exist on account of his being, and it is to show you that your victory was due to his power and grace that he appeared before you and showed that without his aid none can claim any power as his own." Vedanta through stories, story number 17. If 52, why not 53? A dacoit with 52 murders to his credit decided to reform. With a contrite heart, he went to a temple of Shiva, confessed his sins and prayed for pardon, promising never again to commit such offenses. His life thereafter was one of prayers and penances. Once, while walking in a lonely forest in the evening, he heard cries for help. On going to the spot where the cries were coming from, he found a band of travelers attacked by a ruffian. If he was to save them, there was no alternative to killing the ruffian, and all killing he had forsworn. What was he to do? Thinking quickly, he decided, if 52, why not 53? One more murder won't add so much to my sins. And straightway he killed the ruffian and rescued the travelers. But he was perturbed greatly at having broken his promise to the great Lord Shiva. He prayed to be forgiven for his lapse. Suddenly he heard the god's voice, "Take heart, my son, for you have committed no sin but an act of merit. You have by this act sufficiently atoned for all your previous sins." Vedanta through stories, story number 20. Non-violence in practice. A ferocious snake used to live in a hole in the middle of a meadow where cowherds used to bring their cows to graze. They were all afraid of the snake. Once they found the sage Narada proceeding in the direction of the meadow. They told him that there was a ferocious snake there. Narada went in the direction of the hole, and the snake came out, lay as if spellbound at his feet, and prayed to him for his blessing. Narada gave it a sacred name to meditate upon and asked it not to injure anybody anymore. Thereafter, a change came over the life of the snake. It no longer tried to bite anyone and lived a quiet and peaceful life. The cowherds noticed the change and finding that it had become harmless, began to pelt it with stones, beat and trouble it in many other ways whenever it came out of its hole. All this told heavily on the snake's health, and one day, when it was almost on the point of death, Narada again was passing by the same place. The snake told him all that had happened, but Narada said, "Why do you not hiss and frighten the boys?" The snake reminded him that it had been asked not to injure anybody. "Well," said Narada, "I have asked you not to injure anybody, but I never forbade you to hiss and frighten the boys in order to keep them away. If you had done that, you would have never been reduced to your present condition." Vedanta through stories. Story number 19. Sri Rama and Hanuman. Once Sri Rama was highly pleased with his faithful devotee Hanuman and gave him a necklace of pearls. Hanuman, with all his humility, received it, turned it over, and broke one of the pearls with his teeth and looked inside. He then threw away the whole necklace of pearls. Lakshmana, who was watching him, exclaimed, "Here is a monkey who does not know the worth of pearls. Not only has he spoiled the necklace by breaking a pearl with his teeth, but he has thrown it away as if it were a coal of earth." Rama told him to ask Hanuman why he had acted in this manner. On being questioned, Hanuman replied, "I looked to see whether the necklace contained any image or name of Sri Rama. As I did not find either, I threw it away." Vedanta through stories. Story number 18. The case of misunderstanding. A beggar, while on his way to a distant village, saw many people riding on horses. As he was very tired, he started praying aloud, "O God, grant that I may have a horse to ride." One of the passengers was riding a mare and was quickly with a child, and as it came near the beggar, it gave birth to a colt. The rider was in a fix as to what should be done with the newborn colt. He saw the beggar and told him to take the young colt upon his shoulders and to follow him. The beggar realized that his prayer has been heard by God, but that he had been misunderstood. He went with the colt on his shoulder, saying, "O God, thou hast misconstrued my prayer. I wanted to ride, but not to be ridden by a horse." Vedanta through stories. Foolish courtesy. Two friends were going on a pilgrimage to a certain holy place. They went to the railway station, and when the train arrived, one asked the other, out of politeness, to board the train first. The other also did not want to seem lacking in courtesy and asked the first man to board the train before him. They went on making such requests to each other when the train left the platform without either of them having boarded it. Thus they lost their chance on that day of going to the holy place.